All right, welcome everybody. This week's episode, I can't remember, I think we're on number 12. By the way, welcome Clint and Brock. Good to see you guys. We're going to talk about a topic near and dear to our heart. We're going to talk about training and the five pillars of fitness for longevity, which is kind of a mouthful. But Brock posted it in our internal group. He did a column on this. He does a weekly column and talked about it. And we're going to zoom out and just talk about when we talk about harder to kill, a big part of this is training. There's five elements of our Alpha 5: mindset, sleep, nutrition, fitness, and hydration. And fitness, or training as we call it internally, is a big part of it. And so I want to dive into it, and I'm just going to share my screen and just to give you guys a little bit of a headline of where we're going. So we call our training Argent Alpha Athlete, A3. And it's all about training for longevity, performance, and identity. And when we say identity, the reason we call this athlete is we view every man over 50 as an athlete, whether they know it or not. And athletes train with an objective in mind. They train with purpose and intention. And this is a deck from another presentation. I want to flip ahead to to a slide and just give you the five pillars before we talk about them. So we borrowed from Peter Attia. He has the four pillars of fitness for longevity: strength, stability, zone 2 cardio, and zone 5 cardio. And I implemented this from day one as part of Argent Alpha. Brock came in within year one, loved this structure, but said there was something missing. And well, Brock, what's the missing part? And he said mobility. If you don't unlock range of motion, you can never really unlock and tap into the strength and stability. You're at a higher risk of injury, and it's like sold. And so we added the fifth pillar. So keep these in mind. We're going to go through each one of these. And before we do that, though, I just want to kick it off. Brock, when you came in and you started working with all the men over 50, was it pretty obvious the mobility piece was a missing part of the equation? And
Right,
if it
right from
was, and I mean, I know the answer to this question, but how'd you spot it?
hmm right from the start, yeah, it was glaringly obvious, and you know, I see it in everybody that comes in. It doesn't really matter what age. I see it in my 10-year-old kid who can't even touch his toes. Like it's just a lot of us just are we spend most of our life sitting or slouched over, and it's just like it's inevitable with any group that you have. And so the first thing that I do anytime someone comes in for a one-on-one training session, and all the Argent Alpha guys I've worked with have all come in for a movement screen. And so it's a screen that I've developed on my own that just tells me everything that I need to know about how someone moves and their workout history or movement history. And it's just 13 things, head to toe, we run through, and you kind of already know what I'm going to see. The backside of your body, your posterior chain, which is your thoracic, your upper back, all the way down mid back, lower back, hamstrings, glutes, like all of that stuff is trouble for people. And so the assessment just helps me get an idea. Okay, yep, you got another one here. Or, and then like for the guys, I'm like, okay, these are some parts right now for them to see the how glaringly obvious it is that they need to work on the range of motion. And how do we do that is through mobility, right? And so mobility is, it's increasing your range of motion, getting your joints to move into full range of motion. And the way that I think this makes sense, at least it does in my mind. Someone said this one time and I just latched on, is mobility is like going to the chiropractor. The getting that adjustment is kind of what we do when we mobilize. Mobility is like we start a lot of times with a foam roller on your upper back, and then we have this blue orb ball. I have it up there. I should go get it. But it like for hips and all of that. That's your adjustment from the chiropractor, and we got to kind of adjust ourselves every single day, I think. But also, what helps you hold those adjustments in between, is actually strengthening. So range of motion strengthening is a piece of mobility. So picture we I'm just running with this. I don't know if this is where we want me to go, Jag, but it's unscripted. We're going towards your upper back, your thoracic spine, right? So we get it moving well. And the only thing to not have it revert back to that is to like be able to strengthen out of that. So a lot of times we'll do some banded pull aparts, engaging those scaps and rhomboids and everything in between your shoulder blades to be able to hold that adjustment there. That's the only thing that's going to help you to not have to go back to the chiropractor. So that's the assessment that we give people, show them what they need to work on. on, okay, you got a tight upper back and your low back is really tight. So are your hips. Here's some things to work on, so it's really, really obvious right away. And my goal for people is just to not only show them they already know they're tight and they have some issues, but just what they can do to work themselves out of that.
Hmm. It sounds like it's kind of like an alignment on a car where at first you don't really notice it, but we know that over time it's going to have some potentially some pretty serious effects on the vehicle repairs, etc. And so paying attention to these things early is it's really the mobility is the gateway to all of these things. And so
Hmm. Yeah,
Clint,
as long as I don't let go of the steering wheel, it's going to jerk me into the ditch if I don't let go. But it's like that's kind of they've learned to live with their compensations,
Hey,
yeah,
So
yeah,
just
that's a good way to put it.
I'm curious, Brock, most of the guys that you do, and specifically in Argent Alpha, is there a number one issue? Is there a top issue that you see in everybody?
two, and it's their upper back and it's usually their hips. Those two things almost primarily across the board.
Okay, I would have guessed shoulders, and I don't know if you're including that in upper back, but
Yeah, I would.
okay,
Yeah. Just the thing, the upper back, we try to get the shoulders pulled back first, and then this area in your pack in front of your shoulder, bicep tendon,
right.
really screaming tight, and then it comes out more in your rotator cuff. So it's usually in those orders that we get people. But you think about what that is. You're here, pulling shoulders back, and then you're being able to like have everything moving well in here, and then outside of that rotator cuff, your rotation, your overhead movement, but all of it is so linked together. But
Right.
So let's pull back for a second. I want to talk about some of the outcomes that we care about. So we've got the 5 pillars of fitness for longevity. So like, okay, let's connect to that. So who gives a crap? Why are those important? Well, always begin with the question of what problem are we solving, or what outcome are we trying to achieve? And so with our training program, we're trying to achieve primarily these 4 things: body composition. And we could deep dive in this, but if there's no benefits to being fat and weak, so that we offset that. So body comp, we want men over 50 and even men under 50, 15% body fat or less. Once you hit 20%, you're technically overweight. Once you hit 25% body fat, you're technically now obese. And if you're 35%, you're considered morbidly obese. And one of the underlying metrics in that body comp is visceral fat, which is that bad fat that packs around the organs that is directly correlated to a shorter life if you have too much of it. So that's one huge part. Another part is VO2 max. And while we don't require our members to test on this regularly, there are a number who have done the VO2 max. It's important to work on improving your VO2 max, because that is correlated to longevity. And Peter Attia says it's the strongest predictor of mortality. Biological age, we want to reverse that. We want to make sure you're aging slower than the calendar. And then what sits kind of on top of this, and that you don't necessarily start with this, but you end with it, is shifting your identity. And when you believe you're an athlete over 50, you prove you can learn, you prove you can transform. We've had so many guys go from 25, 28, 30% body fat down to 15. They're different people. They've shifted their identity. And I want to come back to, I'm going to write this down. I want to come back to programs like 75 Hard, and they have some value, but talk about one of the weaknesses. So anyway, when you guys look at these 4 things, like Clint, when you came in first as a member and then coach, I mean, you had a lot of these things dialed in, but like what, either in the 5 pillars or in these outcomes we're looking at, which ones for you were kind of the aha moment of where you had to focus?
Yeah, I really like, and as you had that up, the identity piece. And I was thinking of those 4, what did I feel personally was the most important or the start? And I think we would all agree, because we were talking about earlier as well, just the future. The identity, creating that identity is such a huge piece of this. And I really think it's the number one thing that we really try and focus on, just by creating the future self as the North Star to then, create our habits and our just our daily routine. So the identity piece to me was a game changer as well. I had never written a future self before, 3 years ago, and it's the North Star that we all shoot for.
Yeah, yeah. Everything
But
tends to fall into place. Once that
Yeah.
top domino falls, it knocks
Yeah.
down so many other ones.
can I touch on the identity piece and like what specifically that looks like in the fitness and or workout side of things? So, what is your workout identity? In my like, if I were to define this, I would say it's your longevity plan, and like the five pillars that we have that we train towards help with your longevity. And if you're not doing that, you're leaving a gaping hole somewhere, And so I think when people think of workouts, a lot of times they're like, that's like this is my pain, my penance. I got to go through my suffering so that I could just get through another day. That is not your identity, right? That's like you're just you haven't attached it to your future self or what you want to become, or like that identity, your workout identity, your longevity plan. It's a transformation, and it's just like I'm doing these things because I want to be bulletproof as much as I can be, so that I'm not going to be taken out by injury or something that to take me down. Because I think that that's probably the most important thing with mobility is that it takes injury. It reduces it as much as we possibly can, right? Where if you ignore mobility or some of these other pieces in the longevity plan, it's not to say that you can't be super fit. You could be 15% body fat. You could just move like a cinder block walking around. But like being able to be supple and mobile and hitting range of motion, I think you're just less likely to be injured, because that's the number one thing that will derail someone, especially as you get older.
So before we dive into the five pillars, a quick thing. I mentioned 75 hard. So to give 75 hard credit, what it does is it gets you focused. It gives you a framework to work within, and it provides it has forcing functions. Miss a day or miss something, go back, start over. But where I think 75 hard misses out, and I wrote a newsletter on this, is it does. What do you do on day 76? What's it done to the 12 inches between your ears? If you're still the same guy, but you just gutted it out for 75 days and you haven't shifted your identity, we all have internal thermostats, and we are going to go right back to our set point without a shift in identity. That's why when Clint talked about future self as a North Star, if we can shift to help you shift that, or you can help yourself, go read Be Your Future Self Now by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, and implement those things. That's a book that it's one of our founding books that we rely on all the time. You shift your identity, all this stuff's going to work. It's sustainable. And if you look at The Biggest Loser, they've done studies on this. I think there's one exception that didn't go back to where they were or worse, because they still thought of themselves as the heavy person, the fat person, however they framed it, but it was always in this negative past tense. And they just got into a controlled environment for a certain amount of time, and they basically had trainers running them to death and starving them. And so when they got out back in out in the wild, they were still the same person. And so what happens? Thermostat goes back to where it was. So that's why when we talk about identity, it's so hard. And when you really it catches on internally, the friction drops. You find willpower, the need for willpower drops dramatically. Your future self starts pulling you forward. And it doesn't happen overnight. You got to work at it. It's like building a muscle. You don't become a strong guy who can do pull-ups and do all the things that we do day one. So anyway, I don't know if anything you guys would add before we move on.
75 hard, whole 30, dry January, any kind of one of those challenges, like they're all good. I've done them all. And I think there's things you could learn in all of those and take away, but none of them will transform you. It's just a delayed, I don't know, going back to your past self, or likely even worse, almost every single time, because it's not giving you anything sustainable, which is most of what we talk about here is creating healthy habits. Healthy habits are how you shift your identity.
Yep, totally. All right, so go ahead.
I was just going to chime in. Brock just said it, Jag, you said it, sustainability. That's the only program that's going to work is the one that you consistently do. And sustainability is the key. That's the key word.
So I want to go back to this. And before we dive into the strength and stability one, I want to talk just real quickly. A lot of guys who come into Argent Alpha are what I would call chronic cardio guys. So they've been runners, bikers, endurance athletes, and we're not anti-endurance, But those activities in and of themselves, if that comprises your training regimen, you will lose muscle mass over time. You'll probably do pretty well on the zone 2 cardio piece and the zone 5 cardio piece if it's constructed properly. But you're not addressing mobility. And how many, Brock, just how many bikers have you worked with, and what's their hip mobility like?
A lot and really bad.
Yeah, exactly. And so, so that's one thing that we put at the center, and there's a reason these two are first: strength and stability. That is the core of fitness. And you could almost eliminate zone 2 and zone 5 as specific things, because you can address those with a properly constructed training program around strength and stability. But we call them out separately because they deserve attention. And then mobility is like the denominator. So if these first four are kind of the numerators, it sits on top of mobility. So with that being said, let's talk about the first two right away because they're complementary. Brock, kick us off, like just when you think about strength and stability in men over 50, talk about the importance, the role they play, and some of the things you've seen with the dozens of our members that you've worked with.
Yeah, I think that strength and stability are all the movements that comprise strength and stability, and the way that I see it and the way they teach it. And what we would talk about in the group here is like building a firm foundation to stand on, so your mobility is part of that, but then, strengthening, it could be air squats, it could be push-ups, it could be pull-ups, the stability piece. I always think of unilateral movements. So like step ups or split squats or single arm ring rows or alternating dumbbell presses, things that you have to control your core and movement when different things are moving. It's your stability, like the people single leg deadlifts when you're hinging on over, like those things are core to building that foundation. And like you said, Scott, I think that as you're starting out, those should be almost your two primary focuses. Where what do most people do? They're like, I got to crush myself. I got to ramp up that intensity. I got to go after my heart rate. That's why, the guys that are biking, swimming, running, it's not that they're doing anything wrong, but they're not building any strength. Their heart is in good cardiovascular health shape or whatever, but you're missing out those pieces, where I think if you build that firm foundation, strength and stability, and then start increasing intensity zone 2 and then even more intensity zone 5, I think that is a much stronger foundation to build on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Clint, anything you'd add to those two?
Well, I'm just following Brock's lead. You know what I mean? Not a lot to add, but the importance is it's the most important thing, right? And our program definitely gets us there. I don't have a lot to add to that.
Yeah, but you personally are I think you've indexed heavily into strength training, rucking as part of your zone 2 cardio. I mean, you're living it. So from a practical standpoint, what have you seen just from a strength standpoint over the last few years as you've kind of fine-tuned your training?
I feel right now at this point, I'm probably the closest to as strong as I've ever been. I don't think my max bench is there at this point, but just overall, I'm as strong as I've ever been. I feel as good as I ever have, to be honest. And it's just the daily, the consistency of it and the sustainability of it. So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it. Hey, one thing before I forget, I wrote this down. We've had a few guys say, hey, I don't have access to a gym, or I can't join a gym until I move to a new town. And I know what our response to that is, but Brock, what's your response to someone who says, hey, I don't have a gym, or I don't have equipment, or I can't afford one?
Perfect. You literally need an or ball and your body weight. You could travel. You could do. You have everything accessible right there. Like, I think increasing range of motion is the most important thing in my estimation. But then doing body weight stuff, being able to control your body weight, and then being able to build up dumbbells. Almost every hotel gym has a dumbbell. You could get them on Facebook Marketplace for pennies on the dollar. Like, you don't need a lot of big fancy equipment. You get a lot done with dumbbells, something to step up on. And even like a pull-up bar would be great. But if you don't have it, there's different things you could do with a dumbbell. But yeah, you could spend $100 or less and have everything you need for a long, long time. something you could do if you don't have any weight is just slow it down, control really tempo movement. It's just that time under tension. You could do that in a hotel, whether you're doing split squats or tempo squats or push-ups, volume, consistency, mobility.
Well, I think what I hear you saying is it's like jujitsu. For every move, there's a counter move. So I don't have a gym. Awesome. You're going to use your body. Hey, I've got a shoulder injury. Awesome. You're going to get unbelievably strong quads, glutes, and hammies. I don't know what to do. Great. Let's exercise some curiosity and do a quick Google search, or talk to somebody who looks like they're in shape and ask them what they do. So there's always because there's a lot of limiting beliefs that guys have their protection mechanisms to prevent them from doing the work. They tell themselves these stories. I don't have a gym. I don't know what to do. I've got an injury. I have my knees don't work. That was my thing. Everybody's got something, and there's always a counter, or there's always a solution. And so let's segue into zone 2 and zone 5 cardio. And just for guys that don't know, Brock, just give them an idea of like, what does zone 2 mean, and what does zone 5 mean?
Zone 2 is, you could have a conversation at zone 2, or maybe it's like you're not giving one word answers because you're so like out of breath. But your heart rate's up, you're getting a little sweaty. You might have to take a couple pauses in there, because like rucking is my favorite one, because it gets your heart rate up and it builds strength at the same time, and it is a lot less impact on your knees than running and things like that. I think that's a great zone 2 move or exercise. Just was zone 5 too.
Yeah, I did, but I want to add on. If anybody wants a quick takeaway from this, what rucking is walking with weight. You can wear a weight vest. You can buy a rucksack with plates. You can grab one of your kids' old backpacks that's probably sitting gathering dust. Throw some weight in there. It doesn't have to be a dumbbell. It could be a sack of flour or whatever you have that weighs. Go put some weight in there, and then go try to walk a mile as fast as you can. If you can hit 15-minute mile with load, you're going to know what zone 2 cardio is about.
Oh yeah.
Now you might not hit 15 minutes out of the gate, but just do a time trial. That's all about. We do testing is to get baselines. Go out and walk a mile, measure it out, time it, and see how you do. And then you're just going to go. Next time you're going to go a mile and a half or a mile and a quarter. Over the course of like 90 days, we've had guys that they're rucking 3 to 5 miles with 20 to 40 pounds.
Yeah.
And that's just like, is it their workout? They would go like, nah, I was just out for a walk. It's not even their workout anymore. It's just part of their, they're out walking with their wives. So go into zone 5 and how that kind of, talk a little bit about frequency 2 compared to zone 2.
Zone 2, you want to do, Peter Attia's framework, I think is perfect. He knows he's the gold standard in my estimation on this. So he says zone 2, 120, so 2 hours to 180, 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours a week in zone 2 cardio. And then zone 5, which is like heart rate through the roof. I'll tell you how to calculate that in a second. But he says like between 10 and 30 minutes per week. It's like 10 and 30, really? That's it? I go to zone 5, and you're probably going to be optioning for the 10 minutes or less. To see where zone 5 is, just a rough estimate, is take 220 minus your age. So if you're 60 years old, 220 minus 60, 160 is right around there. You're going to be in zone 5. And I watch guys I like the Apple Watch for this reason, basically only, but it tells you where your heart rate is at any time. So I got a lot of guys that train. I'm like, hey, where you at? 145 or 162, and like you'd be able to do a quick estimation. Okay, yeah, we're in zone 5. I watch people hit zone 5, and the people who have a higher VO2 max or a better, stronger VO2 max, they could get to that zone 5. So on that example, 160 or 165 or 170. And then, within a minute, 30 seconds, they're ready to go back at another movement. Where guys who have a really low or weak VO2 max, they'll hit that once and then they're just done. They're done for the day. Like they can barely breathe. They got to quit their workout and they got to go home and take a nap, So I think it's a really good idea to dose into that appropriately. So I think there's, zone 2 there. We didn't talk about 3 and 4, but there's benefit to being able to add in before you get up to zone 5.
Hey, I got a quick question for you guys. What do you think about in both of them happening simultaneously? Let's say you're out on a ruck and it's, extreme terrain. So a lot of the time you're in zone two, but you just climb a hill and now you go to zone five for 10 minutes. Is there benefit to that?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, my layman's interpretation is that's real life.
Yeah.
So there's training under controlled conditions and like Orange Theory, you get into a zone, you come at, but that's not how real life is like you're describing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden your car breaks down and you gotta huff it somewhere and you've got some valuables
Yeah.
and there's terrain and it's like you can't go wait I gotta pause here I'm in zone 3 and I need to spend more time
I
in
gotta let my heart go down.
so I think there's like what I love about these guidelines is they're just that they're guidelines to guide you.
Yeah.
Your body is a guideline, and then there's real life. And so that's my take is I think those are great examples because
And
it's
that's kind of my point. So let's just say rucking, for instance. Okay, well, I need however many 180 minutes of zone two and then 10 of zone five. You don't have to go out and only do, okay, I'm just doing zone 10 or zone two today. You know what I mean? It's just a combination, right? You can hit both uh, throughout the week simultaneously.
I think that's why having some sort of wearable device, Whoop. I love that they'll give you how many minutes you spent in zone 1 and 2, and then or 1 through 3, and then 4 and 5. I think is how they
Yeah.
break it up. Super awesome. So it's like you could see over time. I think it's more of the weekly average. So you could break it up like that. But like you said, Jake, like being able to bring this into the real world, into the wild, that's really all we're doing here anyway, right? Like we're not trying to make the best gym monkeys. We're trying to get you to be the best that you can outside of here so you could do all the things you want and not injure yourself and you can live a long life and go enjoy the outdoor activities or whatever you're doing.
yeah. I mean we've had so many guys. I mean they've done rim to rim. We have one of our members who was in Europe doing this. I mean I don't know how
Mhm.
many miles Larry did, and it's like well that's not a gym controlled environment. You're out hiking 12, 15 miles a day in the mountains. And so he's just living life. He's not working out. And so
Right.
the other thing too I wanted to mention for guys just starting off, a great way to experiment with Zone 5, for me anyways, is start with a 1 minute of work and then a 2 minute of rest. So get on the bike, go as hard as you feel comfortable with for a minute, and then just barely get the pedals going for 2 minutes. See how that feels. If that's too hard, make it 3 minutes of rest or do 30 seconds of work. And then over time, just start switching those ratios. And when you get to like, say, 30 seconds, or like the Tabata, 20 seconds of work, 10 seconds of rest, brutal. For eight of those, roughly, I think is the standard.
8 rounds, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, wow, it is hard. But you don't have to start there. So if you go out and Google like Norwegian 4x4 training, I think is awesome. You don't need to start there or Tabata training. Just start with work and rest intervals, err on the side of rest, and then start switching those ratios over time. You do that once or twice a week, and then you're doing all the other things we talk about. You're gonna see some pretty dramatic changes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
Clint, I know you got a bolt. If you have to take off, go ahead because I know we might have just like a couple more minutes to wrap up.
Yeah.
So if Clint
Yeah. I
exits,
gotta run. You guys keep going.
all right. Thanks,
See ya.
Clint. We'll talk to you
Hey.
soon.
Keep going.
So we talked about zone 2, zone 5. We talked about mobility, strength, and stability. So there's that. And then to kind of to give an idea for people what we do to say, is it working? Yes or no. We do 2 tests each month. We do an in-body scan so we know what's your body fat doing, is your skeletal muscle mass maintaining or going up, and is your body fat percentage dropping. That's one testing. And then we do A3, what we call A3 fitness standards, and we have 3 different versions. And that tells us if you're getting stronger, if your capacity is increasing, if your ability to do work is improving. And those are 2 of the factors we say like, okay, on track or off track, or where do we need to make adjustments? And then of course, nutrition and recovery are 2 other key parts of the equation. And all this is embedded in our process within the Alpha 5. Brock, what do you think as far as like the in-body and the A3 testing? What other things do you look at to say like to answer the question, hey, is this working or not?
I mean, those are the 2 main ones right there. You could see metric wise on the in-body scan, are we adding muscle or are we dropping body fat percentage? That's a key one. And then I love measuring in, different workout results, whether it's weight, whether it's time. It gives you a sense of guys, gals want to know that they're improving, and all the hard work they're doing is paying off. And if you're not measuring it, you're just guessing, and so those are, I just love the simplicity in knowing.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
the other piece of it is, I bring people through a movement screen. I give them a scale on 1 to 10 through all the 13 movements, and I can point back like, hey, here's where we started. We started at like 50% range of motion in your shoulder. You're up to 80 already in a month. 2 months, you're at 95. And like unless you have something structurally going on, we could likely get you to 90+% range of motion in all your joints, if not 100. I've seen that with guys that come in, they're just like, yeah, 50. I can't. There's no way I could even touch a pull-up bar, let alone hang on there. I've had shoulders. My doctor told me never to go overhead again. Next thing you know, like 3, 4, 5 months later, these guys are ripping out 8 to 10 pull-ups, and it's like, boy, I never thought that. My doctor told me I should stay away from that. Well, yeah, don't get me going on that. But anyway, that's another way of looking at his range of motion.
Yeah. Hey, the other thing too is that I don't know if you've seen this. Brock's 40. I'll be 61 next month. But where I've really now been leveraging mobility is there's most mornings I wake up and I feel pretty good, but I don't feel like the body is just fully lubricated. Everything's moving great. I mean, there's like a little bit of like I don't know what the right word is, like rust in the system. The best way to get rid of that rust is go spend, even if it's 5 minutes, but lately I've been spending 15 minutes going through a bunch of mobility stuff, specifically on my shoulders. And when I do that, it's like now I feel like I want to feel when I wake up, and it's just like I'm ready to go. But that's that inner voice that's going to tell you, oh, you know what, you're a little achy today. You better take it easy. Maybe even skip the workout today. And the best way to silence that voice is start off with some mobility, a light workout. Brock's got a couple different things. He calls them what's the one you call the upper body? You've got names for these.
Upper body activator and lower body spin up.
Yeah, spin up. Yeah, those are awesome. And if you go to if you just Google Argent Alpha YouTube on YouTube, you should be able to find a bunch of the videos that Brock's done for mobility. But man, mobility to me is like it's like, I mean, I always say like I was born in '64. I'm that '64 Chevy. That engine needs to be warmed up a little bit. And that mobility is the warm up. It really, really does. And then I go out and have, I think I shared this with you guys in a Slack post. I had 2 of my best workouts last week, and I went into the gym that day feeling just not that great. And that mobility part just transformed everything. And mobility just unlocks the gate. So think of it as resistance. It's like nature's way of saying, I want you to shut down, go off in the corner, decay and deteriorate. It's like, don't listen to that voice. Go out, do the mobility. And once you get your routine down, hips open up, your hammies, your inner thighs, your back, your shoulders, and you will feel, it's like an endorphin rush when you do the mobility the right way. So not only is it good for you, it actually feels really good.
It's so funny when I have a guy come in for the first time and do mobility, and we get them on the orb ball on their lower body, their hips and hamstrings and IT bands and quads. They are pouring sweat. Like, I mean, it looks like they're Patrick Ewing in the fourth quarter. I mean, they're just like soaked. And we've been doing this for like 10 minutes. And they're like, we gotta work out. I mean, but your body adapts over time. But the warm up in itself is kind of the same. It gets your muscles, your tissue, your fascia jiving in the ways that you want. So like you could almost, if you go through, I do the same thing every time. I get almost my entire body within. I have it down. I could do it in like 10 minutes. But I'm ready to go. Like you don't need to get much of a warm up. You could go kind of jump right into. We do our lower body spin up, which is kind of a stretch and dynamic warm up a little bit. But then you go right into your strength training. It's like it is what I do for classes. It's what I do for personal training in small groups myself. And boy, it's great.
No, it's a great way to end this. So for everybody listening to this, here's the 5 pillars of fitness for longevity. Take a look at what you're doing. See if you can check the box on these. Are you training for strength? And is that, are you using progressive overload where you're adding a little bit more work, reps, weight, sets, time under tension each time you work out? Are you working on stability, which is especially important as we age? We've all heard stories about mainly our parents' generation of the fall, the broken hip. Well, stability directly offsets that, reduces your risk dramatically. Zone 2, Zone 5 cardio, and of course mobility underlaying it. If your training regimen doesn't encompass this, you've got a real opportunity to up your game and make some big improvements. And again, this is all embedded in our community, in our process through our app, and it's a proven process. So, any parting words of wisdom, Rock, besides telling people to go Google Orb? What would they go on Amazon and look for? What's it called again? The
Orb mobility ball. It looks like a softball. It's like that big. It's blue. $20. You
20
know,
bucks.
yeah.
And you can travel with it. I particularly love it on my glutes before,
Mhm.
say half hour before bed. It puts you into a parasympathetic nervous state, and you will sleep better. I mean,
Uh,
and then if you just do your glutes, that's all you need to do. But you could roll around on the upper part inside that scapula, get in there, up front part of your delts, calves, quads. I mean, you name it. This thing will do the trick. But it's one of the highest ROI investments you can make is that orb ball.
I think it's, in my estimation, is the number one.
Hmm.
It's you've heard me say it so many times, but it is the most important thing that likely you're not doing. Most people
Right.
that have come to our program have not done it before, or have barely scratched the surface. That it is huge ROI. It'll become part of your rhythm, and I do it when I drink my coffee in the morning. It's just the way of life.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, Brock. And
Yeah.
sorry, Clint had to bolt up, but thanks, Clint. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Take
See
care.
ya.
See ya.